Welcome everybody to this week's this week of the user dev meeting. We have a good topic on our agenda today from Dan Vanderster. It's all about the Ceph Power Users discussion that happened at Cephalocon. So take it away, Dan.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, hi everyone. So yeah, back at Cephalocon in Geneva, I see Enrico's here. Thanks, Enrico, again for that. We had two sessions of power users feedback. So that was at the Dev Summit the day before. We had a pretty well attended session. Both times were pretty well attended. I'm just going to share a Google Doc now. The way that this is going to be it's not going to be a presentation. It's going to be more of a discussion and aiming for some concrete actions to come out of that those sessions. So we took some notes. Maybe I'll share my screen to kind of go through it. But we took notes at that at those sessions, and then had the plan to follow up afterwards. And now that Tentacle's been frozen, then we can start to we think it's a good time to go through this now. So here's the document. I put the link in the thing. Everyone can feel free to click that. We sent like kind of a last minute invitation out to component leads, and I see Casey's here. I see. So we'll go through. Let's go through this. I don't think we'll go through this. I'll get through it all today, but we'll try to get a good start on this document. Now, as it says, like the raw feedback is available in this Etherpad, and I'll just show what that was like. This can be considered like the source of like everything. So this is the real definitive like outcome of the discussions. It's pretty rough notes. At the bottom, it's the CDS output. Okay, so this was the notes that I and others had taken during the CDS session. And then we had a second session during the Cephalocon to add some more notes. But I took all of this and put it through some AI helper to try to get some summary out of all of this, and this is what we have now. So this is probably, we'll see how good that this is, but like we'll basically continue the discussions here. Is there? So normally the way that like the order that this had things was like cluster management operations. Is anyone here from the Ceph ADM team? Because if not, I would skip it for today and jump to like, so it's like there's some
Dan.
Yeah. Yes.
Just a quick question. So
Sure.
to clarify, the Ceph Power Users sessions were long, and then during this hour, what do you want us to focus on or get out of just this briefer time slot?
Yeah, the idea is to really come up with some concrete actions. So meaning like a lot of this may have this is now a few months old, right? So some of this may have already been converted into tickets. I don't think very much of it has, but some of it may be redundant with tickets or already existing plans. But the idea is to like come up with like something concrete that we don't have to do it in today's meeting, but concretely put stuff into Tracker and be like, okay, this is now like this is a real feature request or improvement or bug that needs focus right now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if there's that's why like we have lots of feedback, for example, on Ceph ADM and containerization, but if there's no one like I would skip that until and have that in a follow-up session if we don't have because I think we've discussed it so much and a lot of the feedback is known, but some of the other stuff might not be, and then we could circle back to it. That's why I would just propose that we skip this one for now, if that's all right. So, and this is meant to be a kind of like an interactive discussion, so please like intervene, put your hand up. Please help shape this discussion. This is not meant to be like a formal presentation of slide by slide, what we learned or so. Okay. Does that sound okay? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fine to if there are certain topics where there's no subject matter expert on here, we can hit on the ones that we most care about, or
Right.
with this audience.
Yep. Okay. So if there, and like the way that I'll do this is I'll just like put comments on the line saying like this is the thing that we have to focus on or whatever. Okay. To make it like, and then we'll carry out, we will turn that into like to do items basically. Okay. So I will let's circle back to that one afterwards, because let's do some of the it's like such a long discussion. That's why I prefer to skip ahead. But one of the things I think that we can quickly address, given that there's a balancer person here, is there was interest in getting the semantics and meaning of this kind of upmap remapped and the PG remapper logic into Ceph. Now there is a tracker we know to put that into upstream. So is that
Yeah, I can
something
try to
that's
find
still,
that.
yeah, is that something that's still kind of planned or?
Yeah, so Neha brought this up to me again recently, and since we're wrapping up with the major features for Tentacle, we're starting to plan for the U release, and we discussed including something like this. The main things are there needs to be some research into use cases for which the upmap remapped script is used for balancing, and we went over one of those cases. But there needs to be some research into those cases, and some research into how we would go about integrating that with the balancer module. So that's what Neha and I talked about. But this is something that I would like to work on for the upcoming release.
Okay.
I just want to get in there real quick because another thing that's kind of annoying with UpMap at the moment is the fact that if you have degraded data, UpMap balancer will not work at all. It will refuse to work. So, given you have a large cluster that we are always in the state of having some kind of degraded data. So the balancer simply will not work for us anymore. So there should be at least a false switch or an ignore thing, whatever.
Yeah, there's also a tracker for that. So this one is the basically to put the upmap remapped and PG remapper logic into the balancer module. Okay, so anybody that's like knowledgeable about those tools, please give a review into this into the what the proposal is here, and provide your feedback if you think that that's going to work. For the degraded state, there's this ticket right here exactly. So if the PGs are degraded, then it doesn't work, and then that causes problems like PGs stuck in PG2 full. So I totally hear that one, and that should be a pretty simple fix. But I don't know the simplest fixes sometimes have weird side effects. But yeah, that is a pretty commonly seen problem. I think
My question about the degraded PG's situation is why do we have the logic in there to ignore that in the first place? Like, was there a case that required that? So that doesn't mean that we should continue with that forever, but I think that would mean a difference between taking out that logic altogether versus like a force option or something.
Yeah, I think probably like having it configurable would be would be good, so it can get started right now. But
But yeah,
my
I can
recollection
check
is,
with
yeah.
I can check with the rest of the core team on that to see if anyone has any thoughts.
Mm-hmm. My recollection is that it was just out of concern of like doing more work and damage when things are degraded.
Right.
Yeah. There's kind of no other way to get out of backfill too full, so it's like the other condition is somehow worse. That's the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So those are like concrete actions on app map and all of that sort of topic. Is there anything else, or we can move to the next topic?
I mean, Dan, you also mentioned that at some point you have to like be in a fuzzy state to use the monitors. So I think the default settings for the other balancer should be adjusted to like these common defaults. So to have like a day or two where it's not running. So
So could you? It's not clear. Your audio is not very clear. All that I heard was you said that the defaults should be.
so the default for the app map should be in a way that it is at least for 1 day a week it's not running. So
Oh yeah,
that
this thing.
based on your talk that you have given,
Right.
that should be the default to have it configured in the week.
Yeah. So that is. So in this ticket here, I'll open it up again. What I put in the design of this like upmap remap like fixes to the improvements to the balancer manager module is that so the whole idea of this ticket is of the way that this would work is that the target max misplaced ratio would be like right now if for people that know how the manager balancer works, like this is kind of like an upper bound, like the balancer will like create like rebalancing things until you hit this rate this value and then it stops creating. But like what this proposal is that it would also use that as like an upper bound so that if there's so much backfilling ongoing, it will actually like create up maps to decrease the misplaced objects down to that. So that's like one of the things it would do. The other thing that it would do is like if you're outside of the time window, like begin time and end time, it would just like create up maps so that it instantly stops any kind of rebalancing. So that there's because normally right now, like when you get to the end time, it like still rebalances the things that were in progress at the time. And then also like it would look at the number of outstanding OSD maps in the cluster, and if that exceeds some value, then it would like stop creating. It would stop balancing and allow them to be trimmed. Like so, it would have that kind of like it would have that logic that I always recommend, that like 1 day a week thing. It would have it built in like a different way, this way, so that it's like actually looking at the number of OSD maps. And then yeah, it's like it's not going to even create an up map if it gets the PG into a backfill wait state, because that's kind of pointless. Yeah. So that's I don't know if we need another. I don't know if we need another ticket, but like this is, you're right. This is a good point. Maybe I'll like call it out in the text. Yeah. Share this tab. So I'll just like yeah, be aware of like how many OSD maps we have. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else on the upmap stuff?
I was just going to mention, I think there already are configurations, right, that you can set to when to schedule the balancer to run. I forget exactly what they're called, but whoever mentioned that, are you talking about adjusting those defaults?
Yeah, because so normally like, I mean, this is all the best practice is always debatable, right? But the observation is that when you have like very large clusters, and you're like augmenting the cluster with like tens of petabytes or something like that. Those rebalancing can take weeks or longer, or some things can take a long time, especially on HDD clusters. And in those cases, like because the cluster is rebalancing for so long, OSD maps accumulate the whole time. They don't get trimmed. They only trim when there's no rebalancing. So normally what we do in large clusters is we have tricks to pause all the balancing, like something like once a week, so that all the OSD maps can be trimmed up to that point, and then it can resume. And that pausing of the balancing, like that's what this stuff is all about. All this upmap, remapped, and PG remapper, that's what it's all about. It's about, because you pausing the balancer isn't just like Ceph OSD set no rebalance. It's like you have to actually cancel all of the backfills that are in progress, and you do that with upmap. Yeah. So that's what. Yeah. So then yeah, what we're talking about here is the the default use. There are config options for all of this that can be used, but like making those defaults more friendly for the users is the idea. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was curious about. It'd be setting defaults is, I know, likely specific to or cluster specific, but if somebody has a scenario where you tweak certain defaults, it'd be really helpful to add that to the tracker as well.
Sure. Yeah. I think like my point is, though, like the way that this is all written here, we probably won't even need to tweak the defaults if we do exactly what's written here in this proposal, because it will be aware. Like the main reason that we pause backfilling occasionally is to clean up OSD maps. So if the balancer it just like becomes aware of the number of OSD maps in the cluster, then we don't have to like pause it. Yeah.
So Dan, I actually found that if you don't have any PGs in the backfill wait state, it does trim those OSD maps. So if number 4 is done, I think you don't even need a pause.
Really?
Yeah.
That sounds interesting. Is that so? You're saying that that would be a total change, like game change for how I understand all of this and how most of us understand this. So you're saying that
is this backported, or is this rather new?
Yeah, Brian, when did you see that?
Just playing around, just making sure that it never had any in backfill wait. I mean, I would want to.
I think we should follow up on that. That sounds. Yeah, that's like something that we have to talk to one of the Rados team about, because that sounds to have a PG in backfilling. So yeah, I mean, yeah, okay, let's follow up on that. So let's note that. So Brian noted that OSD maps trim even when backfilling, as long as none in backfill wait to be checked. Okay, that's interesting. Maybe you can share on the, I don't know, there's a user dev Slack channel. Maybe you can share your observations on that channel, Brian. That would be
okay.
Thanks.
There is a channel.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So I suggest we move on and try to tackle some more of these. There was quite a lot of feedback that rebooting and OSD peering is quite like it causes quite a spike in latency. There were people mentioning this, and there was like regression suspected. I think there was like, DigitalOcean has a great piece of advice that they use no up when they're creating and instantiating new OSDs, or maybe even more operations. So this whole topic is pretty vague to me. Does anybody have like recent experience with this and like something concrete that we can follow up on?
So we observe this with our erasure protocol tools. So when we rebuild server there, we also try to run NoApp upfront to like get the repeering of the PG as fast as possible. What we also tried is to kind of remove the primary affinity of the PG to a host that will not be rebooted, to kind of help a little bit there. So giving that, it would be nice if you want to reboot the server for whatever reason, that you can like remove all the primary affinity from those placement groups that are on these OSDs, and then hit the NoApp and then reboot the system. So yeah, because the peering when the PG comes back online, that is from what I have seen causing the hiccups.
Okay. So do I interpret this like, so the proposal would be like to the Ceph ADM team that Ceph org host maintenance would like like set primary affinity to 0 for the OSDs, right?
On that host, yeah.
In going into maintenance. And then it would like, do the necessary. It would probably also like set NoApp right away, right?
Yeah, it would make sense.
Or maybe you would like then like on like maintenance exit maintenance. It's too early here in Vancouver. Maintenance exit would like set NoApp, then like start the OSDs and then unset NoApp. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, that would help quite a bit. I mean, you still have like the huge peering traffic from all the PGs, but yeah, that's what you have to deal with. So not the traffic, the latency that is introduced while the PGs are all peer. So maybe that's also related to how many PGs you have on a given device. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Alex, you're here from, is that kind of similar? Is that enough to
Yeah, I've tried to do the goddamn. Yeah, so we don't touch primary affinity just because you need to handle the case of EC versus replicated. Obviously, you cannot do it on EC. And then we use Ceph like set group NoApp to only set it on the host, not globally on the cluster, of course. That's pretty much it.
Okay. So you don't use it. I mean, I've used it in the past for draining OSDs. It's still helpful. Enrico, do you still use it for draining OSDs?
Yeah, we do. So some additional feedback here. We have seen like tons of slow operations upon reboot, especially of large Rados gateway clusters. I guess this is actually mostly driven by the fact that when the host comes back, all the OSDs are going through a massive RocksDB compaction when they boot. By the way, we're storing the bucket index in the same fast device which is used by RocksDB for the OSD. We do not have dedicated NVMe for the bucket indices. We guessed that would help, but we don't have that at the moment. So in the past, we played it with primary affinity. It doesn't fix the problem entirely. I don't have any first-hand experience with NoApp. It is actually something I would like to take a look at, but cannot tell whether that fixes or not. What has been very helpful for us is to bring OSDs back in a sort of let's say regulated way. So just to give an example, here one disk node is typically 48 HDDs. If they all come alive at the same time, that's a bit problematic. But if we divide the 48 in groups of 4 or maybe 8 OSDs, this pretty much goes unnoticed.
Mhm.
So we have built some tooling around that.
Yeah, so that's what the no-out helps with. So you don't have to deal with the with grouping your OSDs basically.
Sorry, can you say it again? And I don't hear
No
you.
up, yeah, no up helps with that.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
The other thing, if we plan for maintenance, we should also considering to set no rebalance, given it takes a little bit longer to reboot the node. At least some like question: do you also want to have no rebalance for the reboot for the maintenance or not?
I don't see any connection between no rebalance and rebooting a host.
Normally, the timeout should be good enough.
Oh,
I have seen that
no
in the
out?
past.
Do you mean no out? Because I think we set the no out flag when we do the maintenance.
Ah, okay, yeah, no out. Okay, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I think, and there's this observation that it clears no out too early. So I put a thing here to check the no out flag timing. Like, yeah, clearly it should unset the no out flag after all the PGs have peered, like, and everything is good, then it should unset no out. Because if it unsets no out and then things are booting and then things like peer and they like take, some time, then yes, of course, it might mark OSDs out too early. Like that would be kind of, it'd be pretty bad, I think. Yeah. Okay. The latency part, I mean, I know we've looked into that one. I don't. I think, yeah, we'll try to. I think that there are some tracker tickets about this, but like there seems indeed to be some kind of like regression that happened at some point, but that's I think that's probably too complex. But this, like, just putting no up into the host maintenance, I think would make a big, and possibly primary affinity as well. It would make a big difference for that one. Anything else on that one? Otherwise, we can move on.
Well, I'm wondering if there's something that could be changed in like the Ceph code itself, where it's like, when OSDs come up, all the placement groups go into like a queue, and then Ceph just, peers them one after another. Whenever it deems it's like, it'll be quick.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that. I mean, remember, it's done like you mean per OSD, right?
Right, like when an OSD comes up, maybe it's like, I need to peer all these PGs. So it adds it to like a central queue. That way, if like, multiple hosts come up at the same time.
But wouldn't you want things to peer as quickly as possible instead of?
Not if it's going to cause impact.
Yeah. Yeah, that one. Let's note the idea. I think that needs more thought. Should like PG peering be like queued and like controlled in some way to minimize disruption? Yeah, somehow it needs to, like, I hear what you're saying. It's like it needs to be like aware of like how much, like when it peers, like how many slow requests that's causing, things like that. If it's causing slow requests, then it should, rather like back off.
Because I'm thinking that like the latency is caused by like, peering happening on the exact same OSD. Like if it's a hard drive, if it's trying to peer, 50 PGs at the same time, it's going to be a little slow. Yeah,
I mean, the investigations that I did on this, it's related to something in the way that we hand out like leases on the PGs, the OSDs. This changed around Quincy, like Pacific and Nautilus and Pacific and Quincy. I don't remember exactly which release, but there's some actual like peering logic that changed. That seems to be like adding some like it makes a difference if you just like kill an OSD or if you gracefully shut down. And this was, I don't know if the people remember, but there was like a thing that we added to like notify the mon if an OSD is going down or not. This whole like fast shutdown thing. It was around the timing of that the behavior here changed, from my recollection. So I don't. So like there. Okay, let's note the idea that to me is going to. That's like a much deeper kind of investigation and like thing to fix. So let's follow up on that one. Okay. All right. What was that, Mike? Michal, you wrote something about staggering restarts. Is that something to? Okay, I'll add your sorry, idea from the Michal staggering restarts. Okay, so that I think we can read and follow up on. Yeah, you have plots and everything. I'll show like just for everyone here, like some nice plots here about the impact of restarts. Yeah, I mean, this reminds me of something where it reminds me of the topic that there's no built-in feature to, like, if you need to schedule a restart of the whole cluster, there is no built-in orchestrator tool to just restart all of the OSDs. I know different people are working on that, but maybe we can, looking at your blog article, there can be some operational insight taken from that. So I'll just put like that as a thing. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on halfway through the 1 hour. Here we'll look at the autoscaler. So how are the experience? I mean, this is like, we can simply hear, there's a lot of discussions about the PG autoscaler, and there are documents already that are being discussed with different kind of defaults, different kind of heuristics or whatever. How do we want to tackle this topic? Does someone have some like concrete ideas on this one that we can review quickly, or should we postpone this one to a future discussion? I think we would need a dedicated discussion on the PG autoscaler. Any quick comments there? All right, let's move on to RGW and Casey's here. So the note from the Power Users feedback was that slow OSDs holding indexes can pause, can stall the RGW ops. I think just in general, like maybe something about like RGW performance and stuff we can talk about. I don't know who wrote this in the Power User, but is there some kind of discussion, since Casey's here? Thanks for coming, Casey. Is there some discussion? Is there some points or feedback that we should brainstorm here about RGW metadata performance?
So the only thing that we can mention there as well is that we had to increase the thread count on the RGWs because the working queue was at some point full with like the synchronous tasks, and the asynchronous tasks were not worked on because the number of threads were basically too low. So that's what we have changed on our side to mitigate this.
And that was
issue.
like the RGW like Rados threads.
No, let me double check. I will give you the option in a minute.
Okay. I know that there's like there's about like Rados, there's Rados handles, which we don't do anymore. There's like RGW op threads, and there's also like RGW outstanding requests, or like queued, like basically like how many requests can be queued up. Do you have like I don't know, Casey, do you want to maybe talk? Yeah, max concurrent. Yeah, thread pool size. Yeah, probably those are the two. Exactly. Do you?
Yeah, and the op threads. Thread pool size and op threads.
Op threads, and then like Casey is also pointing at this one. Like I wonder, do you think, is this like a documentation issue, or do you think that our defaults are no good? Like, is there any opportunity here for auto tuning this kind of thing? Like, what do you think, Casey, in your field experience? Do you have some kind of advice here?
Not really as it relates to slow OSDs or index apps. But there's been a long-running project to make everything async, so not tie up a thread while it's waiting. And
Okay.
once we make more progress there, we'll be looking to reduce the thread count significantly, but that shouldn't affect max concurrent requests.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for the time being, it's just if you have like really huge amount of traffic and requests, you should do some changes on this. So it's more like a documentation thing at the moment until the async Rados gateway rewrite is finished, to some degree at least.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, can you say more about what exact issues you were seeing with the default configs? Was it just too much memory usage or what?
No, basically the thread pool, so the queue were full, so the Rados gateway simply stopped working, and then we had to add more threads. I don't remember what the default values are, but yeah, we had to add those, and this mitigated our issue. So to be fair, we have like a 12K3 erasure coding, so that's maybe not ideal in that. So maybe we triggered something that other customers won't see.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I guess whoever was observing this, I mean, yeah, I think this is probably more of a general thing. I wonder what we can put here as a concrete action. Maybe like, do we have I don't have the docs in front of me, but I mean, we should be like, it's sort of like in general, we should have a kind of performance troubleshooting guide. Like if things are, I don't know. Like, I mean, that sounds probably too overly simplistic. Like how like Ansgar, how would a naive user know that they have to tune these kind of things? Like, is it like, does it take an expert to know you have to do this, or is it something?
There's a metric we found, like the you can see the in-flight ops of the Rados gateway, and you can have a metric from this. And when you see these numbers are stalled for a certain amount of time, then you have to tune those values.
Yeah, what I always observe and help people, is like advise people, is like, there you have like there's some like magical number, which is like how many ops that the backend Rados cluster can handle, and then you have like the workload being sent by the Rados gateways, and you want to tune that so that they're all balanced, and you don't want to like artificially slow things down in the Rados gateway front ends, and if there's plenty of capacity, like IOPS performance capacity in the back end. So is there, like, if things are, so what you're saying is that you can look at a metric, the stalled ops, and that tells you that things are like artificially slowed down in the RGW, and they would have been handled by Rados backend if they had just been, yeah.
If there just would have been like a thread and enough space in the record queue. So yeah. So what we have seen is that the queue went up because there was simply were not enough threads to handle the workload. So yeah, and that was most likely due to some synchronized tasks that happened, and they basically eat up all the potential workers for the time being. So yeah. So
what Ceph version is this, out of curiosity?
That is at 18.2.4.
Thanks.
What do you think, Casey? Is this a documentation? Can documentation help with this? Or should we maybe create something like that that does some sort of introspection, auto-tuning, like gives advice to the user somehow if it looks like they could tune something?
I mean, it's just an ongoing effort to avoid blocking these threads by using async.
Okay.
Each release has been getting better. Bucket listing is one that has been resolved on for Tentacle, so that may be one of the big ones.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the big ones. We had one customer that did a crazy amount of bucket lists. So
I mean, the default config for thread pool size is what, 512, which I think is already pretty high.
Yeah. Yeah, and Mark does, when he does his like big, huge scale CBT tests, he finds that you get more performance if you reduce the thread pool size, just to avoid so much context switching. But that's probably, I don't know how generally applicable that is. But this, like, so when things go async, do they still fit into the max concurrent requests limit?
Yes. Yeah, the goal of async is that it shouldn't care about the thread pool size. It would only be throttled by the max concurrent requests.
Yeah, so then so then we'll have to tune that one, I guess, to like balance things so that doesn't throw millions of ops out to Rados, right? It backs off it somehow. I guess.
Yeah, so we set max concurrent requests to 8,000 something at the moment, so pretty high.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not seeing any. I mean, I'm not seeing any like concrete suggestion that we can do besides what the work that's already ongoing here. Unless does someone see something else we can do? I mean, some kind of documentation about that. Like Ansgar, maybe we can follow up with some kind of documentation PR.
Yeah, we can. And I mean, bucket listing, if that is patched in Tentacle, I wonder how hard it would be to get this backported. That would be a nice one.
Yeah, backports are a discussion right now because sometimes backports are causing regressions that then we have to clean up. So we'll see.
Features do too.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I'll put that as like, let's follow up on a docs PR for that as the like concrete thing to do. Okay. Okay. Anything else on that, or we move on? 15 minutes left. And I guess, yeah, so Laura, we will have to schedule another one of these.
Totally fine.
Yeah, maybe sooner than
I'm just glad that we're having good discussions.
So we can move on to like CephFS. So this is like CephFS consistency scrubbing, the journal tools, all of that. Is there anyone here that wants to talk about this one? Personally, I think that the documentation is already quite elaborate and complete. It's just that it's not trivial to automate this. There's lots of different steps in the CephFS disaster recovery, or or FSCK. I think it would require like a discussion with Cephfs developers to see if anything can be done to further automate this. So I can just note that down.
Frankly, I agree on the steps. I mean, the documentation is pretty good. It's just very unclear if one should run all the steps in one go or if it should rather stop at some point. Because by reading the user's mailing list, there's one step at some point that is Cephfs reset, which is part of the disaster recovery guide. But there have been multiple cases in which Cephfs developers were saying, oh no, you should not actually do Cephfs reset. So documentation is pretty good, but you actually have to understand your problem very precisely and decide at which stage of the disaster recovery guide you have to stop. And this may be not completely clear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have the same. And like, which of the steps should be done at what time, like, or like in like on what condition, like
maybe have something like a graph there. So
yeah, like a flow chart.
Graph or something, flow chart, whatever.
Yeah, and like are the steps like document if the steps are like safe, dangerous, like what they can do, what like what's the worst case.
I think there is a very clear disclaimer at the very beginning, which is like, if you don't know what you're doing, it may all work, or you may be like producing major damage. So
yeah, I'd like to like so that just means like don't ever run it ever. Like I would like to like get more detail into that to know so that users know, like if they run this, like is it safe? Can they run this, like for example, like truncating the journal, like after, like, you know, applying the de-entries and then truncating the journal? Is that something that is just like always safe, or is it, you know what I mean? Because I have the feeling from my experience it kind of is always safe if things are bad. Like it's something that can be tried, and like therefore if it is something that's always safe, like maybe the MDS can just do it automatically, like have that as part of the boot up steps. Like if there is a failure to load the journal, then it does the recovery steps itself somehow. Like I would like to know how much of that can be done.
Yep.
Like, so I would note that too, like, can the MDS do some of the DR steps itself if it fails to boot? Yeah, something like that.
I think that maybe whoa.
So, okay, go ahead.
So I think it would be maybe worth to consider maybe adding some huge dons in the documentation, like when things are not working as expected. Like from our experience, when you have a multi-active Cephfs cluster and maybe one rank goes sideways, one thing that you may think of is to reduce the number of active ranks, and this is typically very counterproductive. It doesn't bring any good to the picture. So yeah, if you're like in panic mode, maybe having some very simple and clear guidance of saying, okay, we understand you are like the file system is down, but please don't do this, because otherwise you do additional damage and it's even harder to recover from this situation. I think it would be worth.
All right. Yeah. Okay. That's a good point. Yeah. Okay. 9 minutes left. Maybe we'll get one more and then we have to move on. So let me just scroll through here. Yeah, okay, we'll have to have at least one more session, maybe two. So I would I mean, yeah, we're on here, so we might as well do it. So like WPQ versus mclock. I think that, you know, a lot of in my world, there's a lot of operational wisdom to just use WPQ and kind of blissfully ignore all of the mclock stuff after some painful lessons learned. But that's probably not what well, Nea's not here, but like it's not what Rados' core team wants to hear. Do we have something? Do we have some observations or here or further evidence that we want to bring up about?
So we tried to configure mclock because it's considered the new default. So we gave it a shot, and what we found is like the initial benchmark is misleading in a way. So like when I did it, so a hard drive had like 3,000 IOPS, and that was like how. So I was wondering if there is like something off when you have like the journal on NVMe and the data on hard drives, and if you should tune things differently there in mclock, and the benchmark maybe does not reflect this. I don't know, to be fair. So giving this, so when we configured the hard drives to like 3,000 OSDs, things looked a little bit better, but we still had like a huge amount of IO weight in the cluster, and that led to slow ups and stuff, because we basically, if I understand it correctly, oversubscribed the IOs from the hard drive. But yeah, it's not clear from the documentation what you expect from what kind of drive in the initial, because mclock, as far as I understand it, only starts to really work when those initial numbers are somehow sane.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's like,
I'd say that's a fairly accurate statement. So this is something that we are trying to investigate and fix, especially when it comes to the initial benchmarking portion of it. So we are trying to see if we can improve the existing the bench tool itself to when run to reflect a more accurate situation of the OSD in terms of ops capacity, or we're also trying to see if we can use some alternate tooling to determine this value. Basically, we want this value to be as accurate as possible, because this kind of forms the seed of how the rest of the operations happen. So that's something that we are taking it actively and trying to improve things around that. Um, but um, um, but in the recent releases since 18.25, we have made some improvements with respect to the way the shards are configured on HDDs specifically. So we did some quite a lot of tests at scale, and we have modified the shard configuration for HDDs. And we have seen some quite a bit of improvement in terms of improved percentile latencies and also improved backfilling speeds when we ran those tests. Yeah, we would like users to try this on 18.25 on HDDs, especially after we made these improvements. The only point would be again going back to the OSD benchmark. If those values are not sane enough, then it probably would make sense for users to run a custom test using FIO or some tool like that, and then set those IOPS capacity values and see if the situation improves.
Yeah,
but
then there should
currently,
be.
as far as Tentacle and later releases go, we are definitely trying to see how to go about improving this bench process.
But then then we should at least document some FIO test with like whatever options there should be for like an HDD and an SSD to double check if that is close to what the initial benchmark of the OSD gives you. So yeah, it will eventually help to double check
additionally, it will also help if users if you can point out what other things we can improve as far as the documentation goes. So the existing upstream documentation, you have tried to cover as many things as possible, with respect, especially with respect to unplug profiles and in which switch situations those profiles may be applicable. So if things are not clear there, please do let us know, and we can make additional improvements to the documentation there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So there's that invitation. Please try it. I mean, I guess like Sridhar, I guess like something I mean, I know you realize, but it's very like the issues that led different users to just use WPQ were like quite disruptive operational problems with mclock in the early days. I know those have largely been fixed, but things like backfilling stalling forever, recovery stalling forever, it gave people a bad feeling about the because about the mclock scheduler. So I don't know, maybe we need some kind of like renewed like tech talk and demo of just like how the whole thing works, to kind of like explain and show how it works, what's the benefit, and what are all of those different the different ways that operators might be able to understand if it's like if they need to tune things or not. I think Sridhar lost audio. Yeah, I like Joel's idea as well of like some kind of separate FIO test that could be done to use as the input source for mclock. So we're at the top of the hour. I think on that one, maybe we can follow up with Sridhar as well. Is there any last comments on that? Yeah, I like, yeah. So Brian's comment there as well. Like, so let's ask for that. We'll bring that to the CSC that the users are requesting a talk.
I mean, we're currently setting up a new cluster, so I can try to do some like basic benchmark with mclock versus WPQ and see. But from our experience, WPQ was more performant and more stable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe in a tech talk.
We literally have two clusters at the moment. One with mclock, and I can configure one of those to mclock if we'd like to.
Sure. Sounds like, I mean, that would be 18.2.7 that you need to use. It sounds like they were in 18.2.5. He had put the fixes. Okay, Laura, should we wrap this up and then plan another one? And yeah, everyone, please note, Casey's inviting others that want to continue, if they want to just continue the discussion in 30 minutes, to the RGW Weekly.
Yeah, we'll conclude today. But thanks for sharing this doc, Dan. I think it'd be helpful If anybody on the call wants to prioritize certain topics, perhaps leave a highlight on the doc or leave a note or something, and we can focus on those topics at the next session. And we can tentatively say that will be next month, but Dan, I'll check with you on your availability about that. Yeah, thanks everybody for a really helpful discussion and helping us prioritize what to work on for future releases.
Thanks, everyone.
And thanks, Dan, for leading everybody today.
Yeah, no
Bye,
worries.
all.